What's up, everybody? Knights of Last Call is live indeed. My freaking. Oh, man, my. What is up? What is up? Cool. What's up, Steam? Good to see you. Just gotta love a little late night hanging out. We are, in fact, live. Oh, cool. Mr. Blah, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while, Mr. Blah, actually. Now that I think about it. How you been? I do not think I have seen the Mr. Blah. Night shift stuff. What do you do, Steam? Oh, sorry about that. I was about to watch a Nerd of the Rings video that I had earmarked earlier. Apparently, Peter Jackson is negotiating for the rights to the Silmarillion. You know what? I'm gonna go full screen here. There we go. Well, great question. What the fuck is this? Nobody knows. Nobody will ever know. It is in fact unknowable. Nice, cool. Like one of the big ones, like Norfolk Southern, Norfolk Southern, or the other one. I don't remember the name of the other one. Hey, good morning, Arjan. Arjun. I went to school with an Arjun. CSX. Nice. Not quite Philip Manley, but no, we had a really long Fabula Ultima session tonight. Like one of the longest gaming sessions I can remember in a very long time. We played from 7 p.m. Eastern. Well, whatever, it doesn't matter. We played from 7 p.m. To like just past midnight. Like we played till like 12:30 or something, 12:15. And then and then everybody leveled up. They actually got enough experience points to level up twice to double level. So then people were asking me questions and filling in the details there, and some of the things that people want to do. Like we're using the Variant Arcanist class from the playtest material, and like that's not really in the Fabula Ultima system for Foundry, so we kind of have to like make some custom stuff. So we were just kind of throwing some stuff around there and asking questions and taking answers, and the gang was good. So by the time like everybody logged off, it was probably past 12:30, 12:45. So I'm one of those people. I don't know if this is one of those people. I guess it's just any person, but I'm one of those people that when I have a great game session, I actually feel more energized after a game session than I do before. I frequently find myself going into a game session feeling very exhausted. I still kind of struggle sometimes. Like I used to be 100. I don't know. I've always thought I was an extrovert, but then after I started, after I left the corporate job and I started to do my own thing, and I work from home and then on this YouTube channel, I feel like my introversion has sort of come out. But I frequently find that they say, one of the things they say is that you're an introvert is if, doing social activities, it's not that you don't like to do them. It's just that it drains your energy, your battery, right? Your phone drains battery. It doesn't mean it's a bad phone. It's just how it works. Whereas for me, I find that, social activities used to give me energy. And that has changed somewhat, admittedly, over the last, whatever, half a decade, especially since COVID and all that other stuff. But I still find that a good gaming session really gets me pretty amped up. And I'm just excited about, the events of the game and thinking through how things went and how things could have gone differently. And that's always really exciting. So, yeah. And we typically play much later than usual. So, but it was cruel because we do our Fabulous Ultimate game, even though 4 of the 5 of us, 5 of the 6 of us, whatever, all live here, within 10-15 minute drive of each other. One of our players lives in Seattle on the West Coast, so we play on Foundry, and quite frankly, there's some nice perks to playing on Foundry. Like we get to use the cool pixel art, and and we get to play the music easier, and we can pull in clip art and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun in that way, and there's some cool perks about the Foundry module for Fabula Ultima, the Project FU. Like it keeps a running bestiary log of all the monsters that you encounter, and if you make a scan check to sort of learn about the monster, it records that, and so like you can look back into the logs. And because it's me, 1, I'm lazy, and 2, I like to use monsters over and over again because of exactly for this reason. My players really love it when a monster shows up that they've already previously scanned, and so they already know what it's resistant to, what it's weak against, what its best attacks are. Does it attack? Does it deal dark damage? Does it have a spell? So they enjoy that sense of being able to gain information from that. So it's really good. What's up, Garblag? Good to see you. Yeah, we're in a UK friendly zone here. Am I going to page 4 in Philadelphia? I have been told I should. Apparently, Page is sort of becoming the best worst kept secret in gaming. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I went to Philly for PAX U last year. That was my first PAX U. That was fun. It really just comes down to timing and money and all that other stuff. My dog is being very funny over here. Hi, buddy. Hi. He's just got his belly up, legs kicked out, and he's just passed out. Anyways, so we had a great game session, and then I got something to eat, and I took the dogs for a late night walk, because I've been gaming for about 5 hours, and I took the dogs for a late night walk, and then I got something to eat, the remainder of my homemade chicken noodle soup, and I was like, oh man, I'm kind of amped up, and I was fiddling around with something in my stream setup, and I was opening up OBS because I wanted to start tinkering with a live stream overlay setup for our One Ring game, which starts Sunday. And I was kind of like, I don't really feel like working. So I just hit start streaming and just said, fuck it, we ball. And I just said, let's see who's up. What's up, Pumpkin? Good to see you. People like Pumpkin. My EU friends. Actually, a large number of our One Ring players are EU players, I think. So, or at least a couple. So that'll be fun. But that'll be Sunday, and all of the players have agreed to be recorded for posterity. They've actually all agreed to be recorded or to be live streamed. So I have to make a big decision, which is, do I want to live stream those games or not? I don't think I do. I think I'm just going to record them. But number one, they're at 10 a.m. in the morning on Sunday, so who's actually going to be there anyways? But number two, it's just, if something does happen, it's a lot nicer for people if I can just be like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll edit that out or whatever. So I think I'll probably keep it just recorded. At least until people feel like they got their hands on it. Maybe we could do a special, live episode as we get to the end, because we are queued up. That was my big expensive game, right? That was 10 sessions, plus or minus for the One Ring, and I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I knew I had a couple of, quite frankly, I had a couple of my legends and exalted, my big dollar contributors and supporters who were really interested in the One Ring, and I really wanted to give them an opportunity to. I don't know how often they're going to be able to use their tickets, so I wanted to give them an option to really, get something good going. But also, I feel like this about a lot of games, but I really feel like the One Ring is a game that a lot of the mechanics don't even make sense until you go through multiple phases of the game. There's this, process when you play the One Ring where you go on an adventure, and an adventure could take anywhere from 1 to 3 sessions, probably on average 2. But then you have what's called a fellowship phase, and it's where the players return to, a real safe spot. The Inn of the Prancing Pony, the Green Dragon, and Rivendell, that type of thing, like a real safe place. And much like in the books, they kind of gloss over this in the movie, but not really. I mean, they're still there in the movie. The Fellowship spent in the books, right? They spent months. Well, it wasn't really the Fellowship yet, but they spent months at Rivendell, right? And they spent weeks in Lothlorien, right, healing and recovering before their next set of adventures. Anyways, but there's a cycle to the gameplay that doesn't really show itself unless you can go through a number of these Fellowship phases, including the special Yule, right, as in Yule, as in like Christmas time, winter, which has its own set of rules. So I really wanted to give the players, and myself, quite frankly, a chance to really experience that feeling of cycling through those periods, because I think that the passage of distance is important for a Lord of the Rings game, and I mean that both in terms of the geographical distance, traveling far places, but also time. It's something that, again, kind of gets glossed over a bit in the movies, but you get a real sense of time, even in the Lord of the Rings books, with just how long things happen. And even more so if you're like me, and you're aware that this is a world that has, 10,000 plus years of history between the Third Age and the First Age and the Second Age, and the years of the trees and the Valyrian years before that. And so it's just like this sort of vast sense and weight of the vast gulf of time and space. So I think that's really important to the tone and the feel of the game. Garplag sending off their test print run. That has got to be a very, very scary moment. Exciting though, right? Scary but exciting. I never printed a book, obviously, but to see the physical copy and to be able to hold that in your hand has got to be just an absolutely amazing experience. Yeah. Again, obviously, Cinebuss, I'm fine with it. But I'm mostly thinking about I want other people to feel comfortable. And again, I really stress that ultimately these games are about the players, right? It's not for the audience. It's not for the people at home. And, my only concern is that if it was live, people would be tempted to get distracted and read the chat and stuff like that. I want them to focus on the game. I want them to not like in like I want my game to be good. I just want them to, really enjoy it as much as I can, or as much as they can, I suppose. But, yeah. So what's up? Anybody else have any cool news? This stream literally has no purpose. That's why it just says Knights of Last Call is live. I mean, I just literally hit stream. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, very cool. Somebody, I don't think it was somebody was like, oh, you should hire out the KOLC crew as like a playtesting crew. And I was like, number one, that seems awfully exploitative. But I was like, because they were like, they're so good. Because these are game designers and would be game designers and people who really take RPGs seriously. They think a lot about RPGs, and so they're a very adroit adroit crew of folks, and there's so many of them. Oh, still just so little interest in that game. And again, technically, the channel is owed a Call of Cthulhu one shot. I just haven't done it yet. I thought I could get off by running, Castle Ravenloft using Dread, but apparently, can I say something kind of shitty and gatekeepy? Okay, cool. I hate, hate's a strong word. I hate that people now call it Curse of Strahd. Like my whole life, it was called Castle Ravenloft, or Ravenloft, or Castle Ravenloft, or Ravenloft, but mostly Castle Ravenloft. It's about the damn castle, and now people call it Curse of Strahd, and I hate that. It's like, no. Curse of Strahd is a reprint of a reprint of a reprint. It's called Ravenloft. It's called Castle Ravenloft. It's not called Curse of Strahd. Don't call the adventure Curse of Strahd. I hate that. That's just me being a grognard. Big prep, big game. Complicated game. Love it though. I mean, not that I love it, but it has a lot of really cool instruments to it. I like the gameplay of it. I'm a little bit less sold on the mechs. They were a little bit too weird and wonky for me, and I prefer my mechs. We went into this during Mech Week. I prefer my mechs, a battle techie. Yeah. I mean, people are. People are busy, and I don't want to assume anything. But we're not even remotely done. I mean, we got through literally 25% of the first book, and I owe I owe another 1,100 pages or something. So we'll get to it at some point. It's going to be a while. Why don't I like Call of Cthulhu? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but first and foremost, I will give you three. For one, mechanical. So first, mechanical, I should say. I don't like games that have a ton of skills. Call of Cthulhu has a lot of skills. I'm not in love with that system. I'm not super necessarily in love with the D100 BRP style roll under either, which would be fine, by the way. But then you also have but it's difficult, so divide by half. But it's really difficult, so divide by 5. It's just a little clunky to me, and I just hate that there's so many skills. So that's mechanical. Number 2, I don't like horror. I don't like cosmic horror. I don't like slasher horror. I don't like whatever horror. So the whole dark evil gods, babies being thrown into furnaces, dogs and cats living together, miss me with that. And third, I don't like mysteries, and I don't really like investigations. So there's almost nothing about Call of Cthulhu. And then, fourth, I'm not really a big fan of quote-unquote modern style games. And within the context of modern style games, I'm even less into sort of like the 1920s, see? We got an alien over here. We got to deal with him, man. See? Why don't you get him, copper? I got my Tommy gun. Or whatever. I don't know if that's how people talked in the 1920s, but in my mind, that's how they all talked. Why don't you come over and see me sometime? That kind of thing, right? But, so yeah, that's 4 reasons. About the only 1920s era I could probably get behind is maybe pulp. Like the Indiana Jones pulp, right? Like 30s Indiana Jones. So there is Pulp Cthulhu. But then I feel like if I'm playing Pulp Cthulhu, why am I playing Cthulhu? Right? Like that would be like me playing I don't know, Care Bear Lord of the Rings. Like, what am I doing? He did offer once a long time ago. Actually, Ben offered, Ben Ben goes through his phases, right, where he's really into the Knights of Last Call and then decides that, we're all idiots and we're unworthy of his attentions, and he is spending far too much time with us ground dwellers, and then he departs for higher planes, and then ultimately decides that he comes back and needs to bless us with his, and I mean that, by the way, in all seriousness, and nothing but love, absolute love. Anyways, but at one time, he was like, oh, how flights aren't that expensive. When we had the studio, this is how long ago this was. He was going to fly in to the studio because we wanted to do it live. That was the plan. He's going to fly in from New York to run the game for us. So, I mean, my gatekeepiness is different. I want you to play. I just want you to understand why you're wrong. That's all. Shelly, we're sitting in it. Honestly, it's kind of that's what it really comes down to. I mean, it's right over here. It's behind this camera. But what really happened, Shelly, is in order to have a studio with people in it, you need to fill it with people. And at my age, all my friends have annoying ass families, and it's really hard to find people to be on my show. So again, there's a lot I don't like about Call of Cthulhu. Never played it, but don't most people enjoy the interactions with Strahd the most? I think naming it Curse of Strahd puts that front and center. I don't know. I'm not part of the zeitgeist in that way. I mean, the other thing about it too is I'm not big into I was never big into oh, I want to be a vampire. I always thought Vampire the Masquerade was cringe as shit. Vampires were for, staking, not for oh, what a tragic love story. No, he's a psychopathic murderer, he's evil. He's chaotic evil. He deserves to be killed, that type of thing. I mean, I'm very black and white in that way. So I never bought into the tragedy of Dracula. No, I was 100%, team Van Helsing, team, what's his name? Alan Harper or whatever. No, that's not it. Harker. Anyways, let's kill Dracula. Pitchforks, torches, that kind of deal. Yeah, that's a whole other thing, by the way, where people just play the same adventure over and over again. Again, I talked about this before in private streams, but I know that with Daggerheart, one of their big announcements for their 1-year anniversary of Daggerheart is that they were releasing a sequel free. Obviously, I think it's free, but I think it's for Free RPG Day, maybe. They're releasing a sequel to the quasi one-shot that also got released for, when the game came out, right? The Messengers of Sablewood. And they're like, guys, and they did this at a packed auditorium, like a stadium. And they're like, guys, we are doing it. We are getting a sequel to Sablewood Messengers. And people were like, I can't believe it. And then on Reddit, people are like, I can't wait. They're like, I've run it 20 times. It's so good. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on right now. It really just is beyond me. And again, I'm glad that they are all having so much fun. But man, that is definitely not me. Yeah, well, Stonetop seems to be doing very well. You know what's interesting about Stonetop? So I was reading. I think I opened it up for Smith. I had coffee with Smith this week, and I was showing him something. Stonetop. And I saw something here in Stonetop, which I thought was really strange. Now this is the printed final copy, right? Now, again, I could be wrong here. I want to go on a rant here. But here we go. And again, I could be wrong. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But these are the acknowledgments. Okay. So these are the acknowledgments from Jeremy. These are the acknowledgments from Lucy, the artist, and these are the acknowledgments from Jason Lutz of Lamp Black and Brimstone, whose Perilous Wilds and other things kind of got folded into some of these ideas. Anyways, these are their acknowledgments, and they said to Quinton Smith for taking note of our labors. So for people who don't know, Quinton Smith, that's Quinn's. So it was strange to me that he was in the acknowledgments of the book already. So I thought that was a little weird. Anyways, it's true. I do not like rolling dice. I know I'm a little bit behind, but I appreciate that you appreciate the Ghostbuster reference. Good morning from Poland. Good to see you, Jen K. No. I meant modern as in like the time frame of the game. It's set in the anything set like, I don't know, like in the 1900s, 2000s or whatever. I want to like 2D20, but I keep bouncing off of it every time I try to play it. Like I bounced off of Dune. Like I want to love Dune because I love Dune, but I kind of bounced off of Dune. I played Star Trek. I kind of bounced off of Star Trek. I played the Conan game, but the Conan game was rough, and I kind of bounced off of Conan. So that's like I'm like kind of 0 for 3, and I feel bad because I own like 7 Dune books because I fucking love Dune, but right. Pumpkin. I mean, this is a whole separate thing, but if I'm playing Pulp, I'd rather just play Broken Compass / Outgunned, right? Right. Well, I like one of those 3 things, Lope. I do not like mystery and I do not like horror. Yes, I mean in the annals of D&D history, at least that is something. Whereas tonight, for example, in Fabula Ultima, the group had yet another run-in with the major villain of the campaign, but it's not a big deal because Fabula Ultima is set up fantastically to both either if the party gets wiped out, they don't die, and if the villain gets wiped out, he runs away. So it's kind of like set up in a very nice way that you can have that happen a bunch, and it's pretty cool. Well, to be clear, AP is a little bit different than an adventure. I think modules are very cool, but somewhere along the line, adventures and modules went from being literally 7 to 15 pages to a book, a whole ass book that is the entirety of your campaign. So, yeah. No. I mean, from what I understand, right, from Jeremy's, I mean, I didn't read it, so it's secondhand, but I have no reason to distrust this person. They said that they're in, the Stone Top Discord. They said that Jeremy said that they had sold 3,000 copies over the last, 5 years from the Kickstarter and from pre-orders. And then Quinn's Quest did their video and they sold another 3,500 copies. So they sold more copies in that week after Quinn's Quest than they did the prior 5 years. So great, but that's weird to me. So like that tells me that they were working with him, or at least acknowledging his involvement beforehand. So it's not like it's not like he just did that thing out of nowhere. Is all I'm saying, Oh, nice. Why worry? Each of us only has an unlicensed nuclear accelerator on our back. They should still be good, though, Mr. Blawface. They have a half-life of 10,000 years or something. Yeah, I mean, Clandestine, you were correct. I'm just saying, I thought that was kind of like surprising. That's all. So, damn it. I was close. I said Half-Life at least of 10,000 years, but 5,000 years. Okay. Um, I love that movie, obviously. Both 1 and 2. I didn't see any of the whatever nuquels. I don't even know what to call them. They're not really sequels, so it's not really a reboot either. So, okay. So the answer to that is that I don't want to start my Moria campaign until I figure out what I'm going to do for the collaborative or the parallel mega campaign that everyone else will be able to play in as well. And because it's a solo game, and because it's just for me, and I, like there are like realistically, like when I do a mega game like Northern Reaches, I mean it can make me a good chunk of change. You might have 30, 40, 50 people playing. A lot of them will upgrade, so it's like $500-600 a month potentially. And a lot of people join Northern Reaches or join Knights of Last Call just to play Northern Reaches, right? We get a big spike in people who join, and then when the season ends, we get a fall off. So they're there just to play Pathfinder 2, which is totally fine. But I have no delusions that anyone is going to join Knights of Last Call just to play in the Conquest of Moria solo game. So in other words, that actually makes me happier because it means I don't have any like financial stake in it. I can just kind of do whatever I want to do. So I feel a little bit more free in that respect, if that makes sense. And one of the things that I've wanted to do well, no, that's the point, Sweet Threat. There would be no scheduling. Right? It's a solo game. People would just play, whenever you want. But like one of the things I was working on, I was farting around in good old Claude. Let's see if I can find this here. No, that's not it. Okay. Yeah. Oh, nope, that's not it either. Damn it. Nope, I fucked it up. Oh. This is very riveting. I really don't use this kind of AI tool that often. Not like not like this. Anyways, point is, I was trying to get it to code something for me, and I wanted to make like a really cool, like web interface that would make it, or some sort of Discord interface that people could. There we go. Let's see if I can find this. That people could use to interact, to make it easier to interface with the game, because especially in a solo game, we already have a problem in regular mega games of people not really paying attention and not really doing anything involving their own character. They kind of just do whatever they want to do. So let me see if I can bring this up here. Window capture. Okay. So like, and again, this is kind of a very rough estimate. You can judge here. But like, so like the idea is that like, it's like, okay, you've got, like, okay, we've got the level of the Great Gates, and it's kind of hard to see because of the dark mode, but, like you click on it and it's like, okay, we've got the different locations within the Great Gates. You've got the first level, we've got the first hall, the gatehouse, the Great Gallery, Owens Road, the High Cistern, going down. We got the deeps, the fourth deeps, we've got the fourth deep with the throne of the Balrog and the Temple of Udun and stuff like that. And then as people do their solo missions, so like, let's say, we're at the Great Gates, and, the we'll start at the Dimrill Dale, and you can like change it from like, scouted, contested, claimed, fortified, and okay, we've claimed the guard room, we've claimed Alexander Bazaar, we've claimed Durance Door is contested, and it's like, okay, we've got 3 of the 4 locations secure, 1 area contested, and like just sort of like an interface that'll allow people to quickly and easily sort of gain this information, because in a solo game they might be sort of out of the loop, and I want there to be sort of an easy way that when you're setting up to go do your solo game, you come on and you see that right now, we have managed to claim the Great Gallery, claim the Gatehouse, but the High Cistern is being contested, and the first hall is yet to be scouted. And so you think, oh, maybe I'll do as a solo game, I'll set it up as a scouting mission to go scout the first hall. And, and that way, depending on the results of your solo mission, right, you could update that, and it would update it for everybody automatically. The key is for that we don't want to, Derek doesn't want to have to sit there and like, this is a MMR, this is a mega game term that we use, right? We call them AARs, right? After action reports. The way that a lot of stuff happens in our mega games is a GM runs a game. They submit this after action report. Then the powers that be, the overlords, the GM, the overlords or the council members, then have to read your AAR and sort of update the information. But I want there to be, in a solo game, I don't have it. Like, I just trust people. Like, like what, it's a solo game. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to go cheat? I don't care. Like, I don't actually, please cheat. I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, what are you going to do? Like, we're not playing for money. And, if anybody thinks that, it sounds if anything sounds too good to be true, we'll just ban you. But the idea being that I want you, and now, of course, there's still going to be, procedurally generated stuff from Oracle tables, and the like. And I still want you as the player / GM, in that solo mode to be making up decisions. So I want there to be sort of a kind of a fungible common language that we can use. The other thing that I want to be able to do with the Moria, because it's solo, so there's a lot of more individual stuff, is I want there to be, this is something I've always understood, is that there are a lot of people who like to play these games because they just want to be like the cool support character. They want to be the cool smith. They want to be the cool miner. So I love the idea, right? Like that we might have, another group of people, could have scouted out, we're down on the second deep, by the way, right? And they have scouted out, sorry. I'm trying to make this bigger so you guys can see it easier. They have scouted out Mithril Seam Alpha, right? And it was being contested, right? There were orcs or some sort of dark, evil creatures there, and we've managed to claim it, right? And the group is currently fighting to reclaim this old Moria outpost, to make this area more safe. But you, as a solo player, go, I want to do a solo game. Right, because it'd be kind of lame to have a GM run this game for the most part. I just want to go try to mine some mithril and add it to the base's stores. And a lot of my inspiration for this came from many years ago when there was this new game out called Minecraft, and my friends and I were all probably in our late 20s. And we had our own private Minecraft server, and there was probably about 8 or 9 of us, and we would log in, periodically, randomly throughout the course of the week. It was kind of a cool thing to do for a while, and we all kind of ended up like carving out different niches that we did. And I remember my niche was I kind of made food and mined shit, and so like I would log on. Maybe some of my friends were on. I might hop in to the Ventrilo or whatever the team speak and, shoot the shit with them or whatever. And sometimes I would go other places. But a lot of times I would just come on and I'd be on for an hour or two, and I would just go down into one of my mines and be like, okay, I'm going to, mine this bad boy out, and I'm going to go fill the chests up with, ore and diamonds and, whatever. And then I'm going to go over to my massive farm and I'm going to, water the crops, get a bunch of grain, bake a bunch of bread, load up the chests full of bread and meats and, whatever I'm doing. And then I'd log off. And so it was almost kind of like this like invisible hand, because then one of my friends would come on who, they're more into like, exploring, finding dungeons, going to the Nether or whatever, and they could just hit up the, hit up the fortress, load up their packs, or get a bunch of ore and forge some new weapons or new armor, and then head out on adventure. And so it was kind of like we kind of, fulfilled that too. Well, I mean, clandestine, that was all generated by AI, so it's garbage and slop and nonsense. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Alpha does sound a little strange for Middle Earth, for sure. So, oh yeah, I mean, the risk of the Balrog definitely has to be a thing, and that's actually a thing in Moria. It's really cool. Like, you're not going to run into the Balrog, but it can happen. You know what I mean? It's like one of those like, it could happen, and of course, from a player perspective, that there's a Balrog down there. But one of the things that, and this thing isn't actually technically accurate, because I think there's actually like 8 deeps or something like that, or 7 deeps, but as you get deeper, right, your chances of encountering the Balrog, right, would increase. That's kind of the reason why, in this thing, like the 4th deep is red, like this idea that there's this kind of inherent danger. And so even if like your PCs don't necessarily know this, remember that nobody in Middle Earth knows what a Balrog is or what actually killed them. Like it's called Durin's Bane, because all they know is that there was something, right? Terrible, unspeakable evil, right? That killed Durin and killed his son as well. King 9, I think. And then and drove the dwarves out of Khazad-dûm, and that was over 1,000 years ago. And at the time of Balin's expedition to Moria, which is what this represents, no dwarf had basically settled in Moria for that entire time. The time they got a little bit close, technically, was during the War of Dwarves and Orcs, right? When the 7 dwarf clans reunited in order to avenge the death of King Thror, and this is when they killed Azog, the great orc. In the Hobbit movie, he was some sort of like boss character, but anyways, in the books, he gets killed. But while fighting in Moria, and the Eastern Gates, King Dane actually saw for a brief moment into Moria, and whether he had like a vision or he actually saw the Balrog, he basically was like aware that the darkness of Khazad-dûm, still waited in the depths. Oh, make no mistake, clandestine. I know my patrons, and I know my crew. Okay, I know the people I fuck with. Any Conquest of Moria game is going to inevitably end in a bunch of overpowered dwarves with, I don't know, newly forged dwarven rings of power, going on a mega raid and trying to and killing the Balrog. Like it would be like, I don't know, it'd be like Call of Cthulhu, a bunch of people getting a bunch of flaming swords and going into melee with Cthulhu and taking him out. That's almost certainly how that's going to end. I have no delusions about that. I'd like to think that it could be different, but it probably would not. So, yeah. Well, so that's that's a great question. I mean, the answer is that guy. I would love to figure that out, but in normal mega games, we have a GM who runs a game, and they run it for 3 to 5 players, and then occasionally we'll have a raid, right, where a GM will run 10 or 12 players in sort of a big event. My idea for Moria is that the standard session would be you playing solo, but if there are GMs available who want to run a GM'd game for, say, a group of dwarves, I am totally okay with that. So, in that case, you would get a GM like you normally would, and they would run the game. You know, because I don't want to take that away from people. I just want that to be a bonus. I don't want that to be the standard, right? That would certainly be before, because to do the Wilderfeast mega game, I need to fundamentally redesign the system and the Foundry module, like in its entirety, right? Because what we want to do to Wilderfeast is drastic, right? I want to add a fifth ability. I want to add a whole new set of tools. We want to add, we want a heroic deed, right? The entire game. We want to heroic deedify it. Yeah, right. I want to add in my humanity monster, my humanity v monstrosity sort of world of darkness / the One Ring system, right? There was a lot of moving parts that I wanted to do that for, which is why it is my ultimate game. But the premise is still very strong, but it does need, in my opinion, for what I'm envisioning, for what I want, a lot of work. But absolutely, yeah, I want to destroy it first. I think I even said that, right, in my there was one stream where I talked about what I wanted to do to Wilderfeast, and I was like the subtitle of the stream was like, in which I completely ruin a totally fine game or something like that, or maybe that was for Daggerheart. It could have been for Daggerheart. So, anyways, the good news is that a lot of the stuff that I want to do with Moria is stuff that I already kind of tested the waters with in Dragontide Season 0. So it's, kind of goes, Well, we've spent roughly 10 hours and we made it through about 150 pages of the book. So, take that for what it's worth. There have been many. Oh, and I got, wait. I got a nice comment today. Hold on a sec. Let me bust it out here. Well, a couple of things, Animazebon. For starters, what's up? Number one, you might be watching this in 1440p, in which case it is a higher definition than I used to stream at. I finally got fiber optic cable. I guess it's not cable. I got fiber optic internet a couple, 2 months ago, and I finally changed my settings over so I could actually stream at a higher definition. So that could be part of it. I'm streaming at a higher resolution, at a much higher bit rate. And then number two, this is a very contrasty lighting setup I have right now, right? I have a gridded, it's like what is this? I probably have a 30-degree grid on a light source here. The rest of the room is dark. And then I have a single, right, contrast color kick coming on me to really kind of pop the contrast, right? Like if I were to add in a fill light, right, it would suddenly become a lot more just kind of plain and washed out, right? It looks a lot more boring. So we're just kind of really hyping it up. So that could be why. Anyways, I was gonna read this. So how has the reading of Stone Top gone through? Here we go. Mark Womack, shout out Mark Womack, commented on my video. This was the first one. I'm out. 18 minutes into the video, and it's 90% talk about tips, super chats, and technical setup. So now I wanted to reply. I mean, obviously I hearted it, pinned it to the top of my comments, and I said thanks. But what I wanted to say was, bro, it's 18 minutes on a 5.5 hour stream. That's less than 3%. I'm like, that would be like watching a 10-minute video and complaining because the person had a 15-second intro. But I didn't say that. Anyways, shout out Mark. Well, get that fixed. Have you tried to play any TTRPG from Itch? Yeah, we've got a lot of those content creators in our Patreon that we've covered and had on our show. We covered Tactiquest from Level 2 Janitor. We recently had them on the show. We've had we've had Tundalus on from Trespasser. We've covered a lot of not only have we covered a lot of itch games, we've also had those designers on as guests to talk about their games and hype up their games. So, yes, I guess would be my answer. Well, the thing about it is Dungeon World, but it is very specific Dungeon World. It is, there was a big debate, which is to say mostly that people were arguing with Aldark, because that's what people do, about like what constitutes Iron Age. And for a lot of people, Iron Age meant like super low fantasy, right? Super low weirdness. And some people were like, no, that's not what it means. And so then I was kind of like, okay, so what does Iron Age mean? Does it just mean like we're not using bronze anymore? Like, because it's kind of weird to talk about historical periods and to call something Iron Age fantasy when you have like, magical ice gems and, you can call upon the powers of the Earth Mother. It's a little bit strange. Anyways, but it is unmistakably about, the village. And to that respect, the mechanics of the game very much lean into the element of the village. So what is the game about? A village and your role and your connection to it. What are the mechanics about? The village and your role and your connection to it. How do you advance? By doing stuff for the village and your role and your connection to it. So from that perspective, I mean, it's a bang, 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 right? Anyways, I'm not really sure what that means. I don't have time to watch a 3 to 5 hour stream if I didn't catch it first. Like, you mean catch it live, you mean? Please, could you GM Burning Empires? I would love to engage with that. Probably not, question mark. I don't even know if that's even available. But, I mean, Burning Wheel is already kind of a stretch. And when you start talking about, like, weird, like, weird science fiction Burning Wheel, it's a pretty tall order. Right, so, Matt... So Matt was one of the people that was debating this in the again. It was all Look, we're all for nobody's feelings got hurt. Right? We were just debating. Matt was saying, I think it has to be grounded setting if you call it Iron Age, and so Karima says, wait, why does tech level have anything to do with the fantasy parts? So apparently you can call it Iron Age, right? As long as I guess you don't have stirrups. Even if, you have magical elves and, magical rituals and, and the like. So, but I think Iron Age for a lot of people means that it feels very grounded. And I kind of agree with this. So call me terrible, but I think Magic is the opposite of feeling grounded. So that makes it feel less Iron Agey to me, but so now clandestine it makes a good point. I think Iron Age is supposed to evoke an era without institutions, no organized religion, no empire or kingdom, which is fine, except that one of the questions that you get could be that you're part of an organized religion. So, but again, I the game talks about Iron Age this, Iron Age that, Iron Age this, and again, we are 150 pages into a 1,200 page double book spread, so I'm not going to say shit yet. So, but I don't really see it coming through the DNA. That's all I'm saying. But again, I'm not a historical expert in any stretch of the imagination or whatever. But, ooh, nice. Stone Top has made me think about Deeds for Emberwatch. That's the town of heroic deeds alongside the influence track. That'd be sweet. Oh, I did forget the last two questions. Does Stone Top mega game? No. I do not think this game mega games at all. For starters, the default assumption is you are the ranger, you are the seeker, right? That's a classic PBTA thing. So having 30 or 40 people that are all those things doesn't make any sense. Does it deed? I mean, it could, right? I mean, a move is just something that you have to acquire. If you acquired it diegetically, would it be the end of the world? No, not really. You don't gain hit points or anything on level. The only thing you gain by gaining a level in Stone Top is another move from your sheet, from your playbook. So, yeah, it could probably deed. It could probably deed. Recently, a friend of mine invited me to join an eventual campaign of Daggerheart. I am still considering. Haven't read the rules. Maybe I should watch your videos about Daggerheart instead. It might be faster to read the rules, but I have a very complicated relationship with Daggerheart currently, even a year later. I will freely admit I don't. Again, I've talked about this before, but I just feel like the game is in a weird space. From a community perspective, from me as a content creator perspective, but also, and then from Darrington Press / corporate perspective as well. By and large, I don't get by with the weird TTR. I mean, I think that some of them are theoretically and funny and enjoyable. The big joke is oh, Derek is gonna play loves free market. Okay, yeah, but I've never run a campaign of free market. Right. So again, I think it's because I think people associate the progress if we are how are we defining Iron Age? I guess is the real question, right? And if you were playing an Iron Age game, okay, but we had magical teleporters and we had every home had its own automaton golem that did all their work for them, and farmers just waved a magic stick and it just populated the fields full of grain, and and they could telekinetically harvest it and feed it into a golem powered mill. Would you still call that Iron Age? Is that I think magic sort of makes words like Iron Age, medieval, and all that other stuff kind of a stupid term, quite frankly. So, but whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That's the most important part. Honestly, as someone who literally studies and reads and pays a lot of attention to Middle Earth. I honestly don't know, and I don't care. I will say that in all of Middle Earth, in the Third Age, there are only 5 wizards, 3 of which only appear in the stories, none of which really do any sort of magic. um, so, I mean, I will say that from my brief reading of Stone Top, which is admittedly very brief, I would say it is far more magical than Middle Earth is. Right. Right. It has a necromancer who, in fact, did know necromancy. That's good call, Muzz. Um, so that's right. The magic was in all of us the whole time. That's the real key. I'll be right back. I don't need these. That I actually agree with completely. If I had to describe Stone Top, I would call it a low fantasy post apocalyptic game. Again, I think the presence of magic renders the nature of the sort of technology level kind of moot. Again, that's my personal opinion, but no. Forgotten Realms is not even close to being post apocalyptic. Far from it, actually. In fact, the only time that the Forgotten Realms was post apocalyptic was when they try to sort of reset the campaign setting every time they changed editions, most notably with 4th edition and the Spell Plague, which fucking sucked because 4th edition had the big points of light setting, and the points of light concept didn't really make sense in Forgotten Realms, which is a very highly developed, highly cosmopolitan, highly sort of industrialized nation state, city state world. So they kind of tried to roll all that back, and people hated it. And so much so that they basically completely undid it, both not only in the game, but also in the novels. So it was quite the take back. I wouldn't call Eberron post-apocalyptic. Eberron takes place, sure, it takes place after a big war, but I wouldn't call it post-apocalyptic. I always have a blind spot for the Forgotten Realms. Correct. Contrary to the movies, in official Middle Earth, right? There is no like plate armor or whatever. So again, it doesn't to me it doesn't really matter, but it's been a very long time since I read those books, and I don't think I ever really read like a lot of those books. I remember not really loving them. A lot of the classic fantasy novels I just don't like. Like I said, I've always bounced hard off of Sanderson, Terry Brooks, David Eddings. Who else? Just like so many. Like, if that means something to you, I mean, like it's also probably it's a terminology thing. Like if you're like, you're like first edition feels more is Bronze Age, but it feels more Iron Age to you. If that means something to you, like that's awesome. Like, but that means nothing to me personally, and that's just because maybe I'm an uneducated slob. Well, the thing about Wheel of Time is it's post-apocalyptic, in that every age ends with sort of a big the breaking of the world was quite literally the breaking of the world, right? um but and the effects of it, but at the same time, Wheel of Time has very 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 established, there's nations like Carrion and Andor and Ilion and Ibudar and Tyr, and you know what I mean? Like there's pretty well established nation states. So like, yes, it's post apocalyptic, but yeah, not really. To me, anyways. Um, Terry Pratchett, I think sometimes it's funny, but I've never really super loved it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like, again, we're only 150 pages in, but like the tech level of Stone Top hasn't seemed to have any sort of impact or change or effect on the game in that respect. No. Again, for reasons that, like, 5 or 6 of the playbooks that we read have magical or quasi magical powers, kind of almost, like it's very difficult for me to take terms like Iron Age, Bronze Age, Dark Age, when we have, magic rituals and stuff like that. Again, yeah, Wheel of Time I would say is more post apocalyptic, sure. Um, Correct. That's what I'm saying. We haven't, we haven't fully delved into the book yet, so I don't want to like, make any, too much of assumptions here. But um, you know, if we go to the you know, if we go to the inventory sheet, I see things like knife, dagger, needle and thread, whiskey, tinderbox, hatchet, mallet, mattock, maul, staff, spear, long spear, bow and arrows, javelins, shield, cloak, mess kit, rope, shovel, snowshoes, you know, nothing, nothing overwhelmingly here that's like me. I mean, like I read that and I go, I don't know, that could be from D&D. So like if the definition of Iron Age is just, the tech level, I don't is it because it doesn't have plate armor? I mean, maybe is that what it's supposed to be? It's like it's got an iron cuirass, and that makes it so different. I don't know. Trekkie, Derek's just an average Joe with an average job, an average white suburbanite slob. He likes football and porno and books about war. I do have a nice hardwood house with a nice hardwood floor. Oh, no locks. All right. that's 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 the defining, okay. If that's what makes your cat okay. I mean, um but sometimes that just ain't enough to keep a man like me interested. Oh no. No, no, no way, no, huh, no, I gotta go out and have fun at someone else's expense. Trekkie is trying to say that I'm an asshole, by the way. This is an old song by Dennis. No. Is it by Dennis Leary? Maybe. Um, right. No, no glass blowing tools. All right. Um, okay. Like, if glass blowing has featured prominently in your D&D campaigns, then you know what? I take everything back that I just said. But it has never featured very predominantly in my glass. Again, I might be just I just might be an uncultured person. I remember reading reviews. Okay, spoiler alert for a 20-year-old movie. I remember reading some asshole review on Reddit about the movie, not Signs, The Village by M. Night Shyamalan. And somebody was like, there were a bunch of people, all self congratulating people, who were like, oh, I knew that they were in the modern era as soon as as soon as I saw the greenhouses. I was like, they didn't have the glass blowing techniques to be able to make those kind of panes of glass until the late 19th century, early 20th century. So I immediately knew that we were in modern times, and I was like, all right, you know what? Respect. If that's if that's that, you had that, you had it down. I don't know, yak bladders or something. Um, they're carrying their whiskey around in something. Oh, it's in a skin. There you go. Good old water skin, a wine skin. Um, of course it is. Of course it is. Um, but see, I guess the difference is I never thought of my D&D campaign as being medieval. Maybe that's what it is. Like people are like, "Oh no, it's definitely Iron Age. It's so different." And I'm like, "I never thought of my D&D campaigns as being medieval. I never thought of my D&D campaigns as having any connection whatsoever to anything remotely, you know, real world in any way, shape, fashion or form." So, that's probably maybe the big difference. Like I never thought of my D&D campaigns as being medieval ever. So, yeah, exactly. It's generic ass fantasy. That's what it is. Did we not have potatoes back then? Is that like what you're trying to say? See, I don't even know. Like I've never been one of those people who's like, "Oh, this game is so good because the best armor you can have is chainmail." You see, plate mail wasn't even invented really until the early Renaissance. So when I see a medieval game and it's supposed to be early medieval, maybe even dark ages, and they have plate mail, I go, "Oh, how disgusting." Um, there we go. Good morning, Sam Sam. Potatoes. Well, Matt, listen. Everyone's here for one reason and one reason only, because they disagree fundamentally with me. True, Adam, and I think that is, it was probably true at one point in time. I mean, D&D, right? D&D was begat of a set of medieval wargaming rules, to which, Gary Gygax added elves and dragons, but there was also once upon a time like where, spears and pole arms were like hands down the best weapons. But now, like, I don't know. Like we've changed considerably, that's all. Right. And again, respect, to everyone has their, particular, the thing that they are really hyped about. All I'm saying is that nothing I have seen in the mechanics or the elements of the game make me feel like that the technology setting of the game is particularly part of the mechanics of the game, because that's all we've covered so far, So I don't know. You love horrors, you love mysteries, 1920s, right? Yeah, no, Matt, I love nothing. I love none of those. In fact, I've said this before, the only horror game that I enjoy is Dread. And it's because, number one, it's always a one-shot. Number two, it actually plays well as a one-shot. It's not only is it designed for a one-shot, it plays well as a one-shot. Number three, because of the innovative mechanic, which really, I think, draws you into the physicalness of the horror and the tension. Nothing about BRP makes me feel like this is a good system for horror. Yeah, I mean, without getting off into a too stretch of imagination, though, but like the thing about Dread is there's not really a character sheet. You don't have a character sheet with 75 skills. You don't have this, complex system for tracking your character's sanity over a long period of time and watching your luck dissipate and dwell aways. 10 Candles is also quite good, and Panic, I do think, I haven't played it as much as I've played Dread, but I've played it before, and yes, I think it's really good in that way, Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. When you die in Dread, you're just done. You don't come back in. You're just done. You're out of the session. It is player elimination. Right. And again, clandestine, totally acceptable. What I'm trying to say, you said it's evocative and sort of descriptive. For whatever reason, a large percentage of people in my community felt like Iron Age was very synonymous or evocative with ultra low fantasy. And then there was a debate about what is that at? What does the technology level have to do with the fantasy? And then so on and so forth and so forth. Overrated. It's okay, but it's overrated. But it's okay. Doesn't mean it's like bad, but it is overrated. There's a reason it's kind of died and withered on the vine. It does suck to be that one. I mean, that was the big joke, Mateo, right? With our Dungeons in the Dark and Dread, right? Where we played D&D and Dread in Castle Ravenloft with Blades in the Dark. Oh, no, it was Dungeons and Dread. No, it was Dungeons and Dread in the Dark. That was what it was, right? It was Blades in the Dark, X Dungeons and Dragons, X Dread. And we played in Ravenloft. And the joke was that Bob was so much better at Jenga than anybody else was, and so he was like the master class. He was the min-maxing car op character because he could just do whatever he want. Right. Yeah. See, again, it's a term that means a lot of different things for a lot of different people, I guess, in that respect. Because again, it's weird. Again, it all comes down to perspective, right? So, um, a lot of people, they think about Lord of the Rings, and people will say things like, "Oh, that's low fantasy, that's low iron," which is true, sort of. You were specifically talking about the books, the Lord of the Rings, which theoretically cover about 20 odd years, right? Um, of the very end of the third age of Middle Earth. My version of Lord of the Rings involves things like a half elven demigod riding an airship made of glass with a burning artifact of cosmic power imbued in the bow and fighting and killing a dragon, no lie, the size of an entire mountain. Not like Smog. I'm talking about like Smog X100. So, like, that's also from Lord of the, that's also from Middle Earth, right? So there's a sense of perspective, when it comes to like the type of stories that when people think about Middle Earth. But people that, they think Middle Earth, they think Lord of the Rings, they think, the Shire, and they think of whatever. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, okay, if we're starting to talk about Iron Age in the context of anthropomorphic little mice creatures, I, it's a little bit silly. I guess it's Iron Age. I don't know. Right. A spider, yes, a spider thing eats light and kills the devil. Yes. So, well, that's why Dread's so great. If the tower falls, you die. Boom, perfect. Nothing more fragile and frail than that. Um, I have just seen Dread deliver again and again and again and again. Whereas, as a one shot, whereas I've seen a lot of Call of Cthulhu, okay, and again, I'm not an expert here. The ones that I have been in, I've never run them, obviously. I've never run them, but the ones I have been in, and more importantly, the ones I have been near, like I've been to many conventions, so I've seen many Call of Cthulhu one shots, Most of them sort of devolve into, I don't want to say slapstick, but I don't know. They tend to get pretty, wonky and silly. Most Dread games I've seen, the maybe not necessarily the horror, but the tension, right? The anxiety is palpable. It's real. Um, so that's interesting. You can't explain why, but that feels more like myth than fantasy. For me, fantasy has to do with the way people live in the present of a setting, like most people believe in myths. Interesting. I mean, I think the textbook definition is fantasy is a world that cannot exist, right? So science fiction is something that could exist. I guess I don't know. I don't know. That's a complicated question. I mean, part of it probably has to. I mean, I just don't like horror. Period. I don't like the books. I don't like movies. I've enjoyed. I enjoyed certain psychological thrillers, but like horror movies, never did it. Slasher films or weird stuff just doesn't do it for me. It's an interesting take. All horror stories are actually love stories. If I had to guess, my guess is that ultimately, uh, I believe in the triumph of good over evil, and so, by the way, I am not a religious individual. I'm gonna get real nerdy here. So, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, chieftain of the Dunedain, um, has a name that is given to him by the elves, and it is Estel. It's a Sindarin word, and it means hope. But as is so often the case with languages, it's a little bit more complicated than that, right? Like the simple translation of Estel is hope, but it's more complex than that. Okay, and what it really means is it's an elven term that has to do with, it's a very complex concept, right? But the complex concept is that in Tolkien's Legendarium, elves are bound to the circles of the world. Okay, and again, a lot of people aren't even aware of this, but elves are immortal. They're like, I knew elves are immortal. No, I mean they're immortal. Okay, so when you see those elves dying, in the movies, like they make a big deal about that. I think in the Two Towers movie, right? Like the elves come to the Hornburg, to Helm's Deep, and they die, defending or whatever. And, that didn't really happen in the books, but whatever, I don't care. I think it's still kind of a cool moment. But they make this big meal. But see, here's the thing. Now, I'm not saying it's not tragic. Of course it's tragic. But here's the thing. Those elves, not dead. Their spirits obviously leave their bodily forms, but their Fea, their spirits, go to the halls of Mandos, where it might be 100 years, it might be 1,000 years, it might be 10,000 years, but eventually they are reborn in Valinor. Okay, the elves literally cannot die. They cannot leave the world. And so they don't know what their plan, like what Eru Ilúvatar, the creator god of Tolkien's Middle-earth, they don't know what their plan is, what his plan is for them, right? So like they're kind of jealous because men die and then their spirits depart. In theory, to perhaps to serve some greater purpose, or to join the One, or to do this other stuff. Elves, even though they're immortal, they are bound to the world, and then so the Valar speak that at the end of the times, at the Dagor Dagorath, right, which is like the final battle against evil, the world will be remade, and the elves basically, they're like, we don't know what our end is, but we trust, we believe, we hope. But it's more of like this abiding faith that there is a plan, that good will conquer evil. And this term is called Estel. Anyways, I like that. I like the idea that to quote Sam from the movie, like, and what are we fighting for, Sam? He says like, that there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for, or whatever he says. Exactly. And I like that. I mean, I think I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be, I don't want to feel cynical. I don't want to feel, whatever. Whatever emotions, horrors, or genre is supposed to make you feel. I want to feel uplifted, and I want to feel like, that good and righteousness have triumphed. And a lot of horror, not all horror, I suppose, but a lot of horror is not that, what use is, what is the pointless struggles of humans in the face of such cosmic uncaring horror? You all died and went insane and it meant nothing. And in the end, the earth will be destroyed anyways. Okay. Like if that does it for you, respect. But, that doesn't do it for me, Now again, I was specifically, speaking to the elven concept, right, from Middle Earth, right? But that's why I was adding, like, I'm not particularly religious, so I don't necessarily believe that God has a plan or whatever. But there's I can certainly see the enjoyment. I can certainly see the appeal of that, Tell that to Feanor. Well, Even Feanor ended up in, the halls of Mandos. But again, okay, like some people really enjoy, I don't know, being spanked with a leather paddle, say during a sexy time. I don't, but that's not a knock against you if you enjoy it. You enjoy that. But when it comes to my role playing game enjoyment, my media enjoyment, I don't enjoy being spanked with a studded leather paddle. And to me, that's what horror is, right? It's the media equivalent of a studded leather paddle. You know, Forvor, love it. It matters not what you fight, but what you fight for. That's right. Um, so right. Um, yeah. Again, I mean, like it's pretty cool when the characters do succeed, obviously, and it's, I mean, again, but like, not to like put too fine of a point on it, right? But like, there's a certain element of Lord of the Rings, right, that like, in a weird way, if you really look at it, like they were never gonna not win because like Eru Iluvatar was like directly intervening, right? Like Eru Iluvatar brought back Gandalf. Gandalf just didn't randomly come back to life, nor is that something that happens to pretty much anyone else ever in the history. Like a lot of people think it's like, oh, because he's a wizard and he can't die, or oh, like that's what he did. No, like that was like a once in history type event where the high creator god of Tolkien's universe directly intervened and brought Gandalf back to life. Um, there's even this idea that like the reason Gollum fell into the lava was because like Eru Iluvatar kind of like made it happen. Anyways, um, but like the problem with that is take X Files, um, a chance of failure. But did Mulder and Scully like they never like died? Like through all the seasons of the X Files, they you know sure sometimes they didn't just wrap everything up nicely at the end of every episode. Goodness gracious, no. But you know, um, I mean, that's probably the closest I've ever come to enjoying horror. I've is probably like X-Filian, Delta Greenian, what was it called from D20 Dark Matter, you know. Correct. Eru, I'm going but Eru Iluvatar tells, right, Melkor, right? Like, you will see that even the fucked up things that you are doing, right, are actually my doing. Like, you think you're doing something fucked up and you're getting away with things, but no, that was all part of my plan too, right? Um, and so, this is one of the reasons why, like, while I think it's an interesting game, I would never really be interested in playing, say, Heart, right, where your characters are doomed from the start, right? Like, um, but again, I mean, different strokes for different folks, right? But the answer, the question as to like why don't I enjoy horror, and that's the answer. I mean, it's probably even more complicated and nuanced than I'm even aware of, but that's the nitty gritty of it. So, um, but you enjoy Mahedros' character because the story is depressing? Sure. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I like the non-depressing stories. I don't know. I mean, there are a number of depressing stories in Lord of the Rings. That's true. Um, yeah, I don't know Trophy Dark that well. But yeah, no, I don't know. Again, I like um I mean, I don't. Again, I don't know. I've never really played the game, but I mean, like, if there's a way to beat the monster, I think that's probably good. Yeah. No, there's a depressing story. Oh, sorry, Trophy Gold. Sorry, I'm not quite. I'm not as up to date on all the jazz of it. By the way, the chat window has definitely been working. So I think Twitch is what fucks up my chat thing. Unfortunately, I got to figure that out because I hate to not include the Twitch people. Man. Oh, what happens if I do this? Oh, neat. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of cool functionality in here that I don't ever actually use. Like if I click on that guy, and I click see user history, I can see all the messages that he sent or they sent. You're called that guy, but I assume you're male, but you may not be. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's cool. Like being on Twitch is awesome. Like I get an extra like $200 a month from the Twitch subs, which is even cooler because most of them are from people for free, right? They're not spending any of their own money to do it because they're using Twitch Prime. And $200 a month, it's not nothing. You know, kind of pays for gas. Yes, they're making the chat a little twitchy. Oh man. But um again, I mean, listen, Lope, if that does it for you, I mean, knock yourself out. I'm glad. I mean, like that's what's cool about role playing games, right? There's so many different weird and different takes on it. Like I mean, it's a joke because it is weird and pointless, but like um in free market, right? You are free market is maybe in some ways it's like the opposite of horror, right? In free market, you are immortal. You can't be killed, and if you are killed, they just print you a new body and they just download you. And you have everything. You live on a space station with basically all the stuff that you could ever need or want. There's no money. You basically have like replicators for everything. Uh, like you have everything that you could ever want. And I'm like, oh, that's so fascinating. What would I do in this? What would I do in this post-scarcity utopia, right? Um, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. I mean, it was so weird that when we covered it, like that's how we actually got like the attention of like Luke Crane and like Jared Sorensen and stuff because like nobody ever covers that game. Um, and we were like talking about it, and there was like a hilarious thing. Free market is a kind of horror I love. It's an interesting way to think of free market as a horror game, but yeah, I guess there is kind of there is a certain horror in that depending on how you want to view it. Um, I view it as kind of like a positive nihilism, right? Where it's like if nothing matters, then the only thing that matters is whatever you think matters. So I don't know. I think that that's kind of a cool way to view that, right? Like one of the things I always loved. There's a lot of little things, but one of the things I really love about Star Trek is there's a lot of little influences of this, but like one a great example of this is Ben Sisko, right? Ben Sisko's the commander, captain, the head of Deep Space Nine, right? And his father runs a restaurant in New Orleans, which, okay, it's a world where, number one, you don't need to work, you don't need to do anything. Because especially on Earth, right? It's utopia. You have unlimited energy, unlimited food, unlimited whatever. You could do whatever you want mostly. And even if you didn't, there's holodecks, there's transporters. You can go anywhere you want. But then, as a restaurant, people could just go to the replicator and just get a food. They can get whatever they want. Um, and so it's interesting. How his father chooses in a world in which you don't have to do anything. You could just exist and it wouldn't matter. Like, there's no shame in it. Like, you're just doing your thing. But he chooses to run a restaurant, and he's really passionate about running his restaurant, and people come into his restaurant, and I just find that so fascinating. To me, like, that's like the essence of free market. So, hey, what is up? Hey, what's up? First time actually catching a live stream. Peter, nice to see you. Welcome in. Thank you so much for that extremely generous little donation there. I've been watching VOD since the Dagger Week days. Oh, shit. Okay, figured it's about time I start paying rent. I appreciate it. We love to see it. Also, let's go Stone Week. Please put the money towards that if you can. Yeah, no, we are going to keep doing some Stone. We're going to keep doing Stone stuff. We've got a lot to cover, PETA. The support from the community has been amazing, so thank you. We've had, obviously we've done 10 hours of streams. Probably nothing today, well, because we're doing this, but I got to get ready. Tomorrow, Sunday, I have to run session 0 for my One Ring campaign for a bunch of patrons from the channel. But then Sunday night, I think if I'm feeling up for it, let's see how the voice is doing. But Sunday night, I think we might do another Stone Top, and then probably into next week. We're gonna keep knocking them out. I think the game is really cool, and I love PBTA, and getting to share it with people whenever I can sort of try to break down some of those barriers and those walls. Again, I freely admit that PBTA is not for everybody, but I do think that I think it makes you a better game master if you understand these ideas and concepts. So there we go. But so thank you so much. I am taking every Stone Week extension donation as an attack against Pico, and you are right to do so, because it is very much the next. It is very much the next game on our list. There we go. If nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do. From Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Wise words from the Slayer. Yeah, obviously they're very, high level Daggerheart. You're punching the sun, and you're shrouding out the moon with an eclipse and covering the land in darkness, and you're doing some pretty crazy off the wall stuff. That being said, there's also things in Daggerheart that I think are kind of pointless, like numbers go burr. I don't need the numbers to go burr. I just don't. Like, I am totally fine in Daggerheart to like, you start with maybe like 6, maybe 7 hit point boxes, and you might finish the game with like 12. Like, that's cool. Like, you double your hit points. Very cool. But like, I don't need the damage numbers to scale the way that they do. I don't need you to be rolling 5 dice and have damage thresholds that are like, 80, 40, 20. Like, it's just too high. Like, that part of the game I don't like. But fantastic. Peter says, PBTA might not be for everybody, but it sure is for me. Have I read Legacy Life Among Ruins? I love it. Yes, I have read it. I own it. It's back here somewhere. Yeah, I think it might be up there. But it's not like my absolute favorite instance of... I'm trying to think who wrote that, or I should say who published it. Because I know there's a second edition. I don't have that. I know that they did a second edition. Yeah. Rowan Rook and Decker printed the second edition. But I know it came out like 6, 7 years ago. You can hear that train. Wow, that's respectable. But it is an interesting game. And it is. There's some cool moves in there. I'll just say that. I would agree. There's not a lot of colony management TTRPGs. Oh yeah, Freebooters on the Frontier is very cool. I didn't know they were making a second one. Oh, I don't know that I've read that one. That might be new to me. Shattered City? What's that? Shattered City by Rowan Rook and Deckard. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably by the same people, basically, right? Came out, looks like 2020, maybe? Yeah, I don't know that one. Interesting. Interesting. Um, yeah, yeah, I could see the authors are the same. Yeah, I didn't know that. I want to like Daggerheart, but something about it doesn't work for me just yet. I think it's the meta currency economy, but I have only played it a few times. I don't feel like I get it yet. Yeah, that's true. There's not a lot of games that I haven't heard of, especially since I'm fairly familiar with the Rowan people. You know, their catalog of stuff. Um, Rain gobbles so hard, right? That's the one roll engine, right? Or the gobble dice. Uh, so I think what what gets people I think what gets people's goat about Daggerheart is that it is trying to have its cake and eat its too, and I do think that that does give it some, it gives it some cognitive dissonance sometimes, um, for sure, but also to be, like I said, completely honest with you, um, I ran Daggerheart once back when it was in beta, and a lot of the rules were still that have changed. I'm going to be running it here in the near next couple of weeks, and it will be an interesting experience. And we'll see how it goes. I think that what people are saying here is quite correct, which is Daggerheart is trying to bridge two worlds, and Clandestine says, I haven't found a group that wants to mix narrative stuff and trad combat style, and Shinobi says the same thing. Uh, Whereas my experience, and this is why I'm bringing my experience. My experience is that whenever I'm playing a trad game, Sword Chronicles, I think you're thinking of the Chronicle system, right, Lope? That was basically wasn't that the Song of Fire and Ice that got converted into a generic system after they lost the license to a Song of Ice and Fire? I think I could be wrong. I think it's from Green Ronin. Um, could be, but maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, so the thing with Daggerheart is, when I'm running a challenge-based game, okay, like a dungeon crawl, and I'm really trying to, I want to see if the players can win. I want to see if the players can beat me. Can they beat my dungeon? Can they overcome the challenges? Can they level up? Can they get good? Then running a traditional D20 type game is incredibly easy. It's very satisfying. In fact, I would argue that some of the more modern D20 games become a little bit frustrating. And the reason why is because the modern D20 games aren't necessarily trying to tell that. They're trying to tell stories. They're trying to be Baldur's Gate 3. And so the game systems have changed so that it's really hard to challenge the PCs now. Or the buttons that they are designed to push become very, very difficult, in the sense that, like, it's like the players win, the players win, the players win, the players win, the players win. There's a narrow window where the outcome is maybe, uncertain. And then anything past that, the players auto lose. So you have this very tiny window where you can actually get something that might be dicey or challenging. But then again, the games become so complicated that if someone does die, it's a big hassle and all this other stuff. Anyways, those are fine. But when you start trying to use a trad game and start trying to tell, like, I would say, cinematic stories with them, I find myself being very frustrated, because I want to hit certain narrative beats, and I want to hit certain, sort of directorial I want to have certain directorial powers that a game like PBTA or PBTA style games give me. However, I have run PBTA games. I've run Dungeon World for extended periods of time. And what myself and my players have always ended up feeling very bored with over a period of time is, man, I just kind of miss, you know, pushing my button and doing a cool attack power and, you know, getting to do something cool. You know, moves are cool and all, but like they're very abstracted in most of the time. And, you know, they're not necessarily, I don't think like, you know, the Root game from Magpie tries to get kind of granular, like hyper granular with their moves. Avatar, also from Magpie. In fact, I would maybe say Magpie, but Avatar and Root come to mind as trying to get really hyper granular with their moves, especially around combat. And I don't know that the PBTA system is really well cut out for that. So I have found that when I run these PBTA games in a long enough period of time, I start missing basically, you know, just using your cool power and doing some cool thing. So that's why Daggerheart is sort of exciting for me, because I know that for me, that is a common pain point, and it sort of solves that issue while giving me the tool set of, oh, you rolled with fear or you rolled a failure, and the game is giving me, the game master, permission / a requirement to sort of take the game in a direction of my choosing. You see, when I put on the hat of challenge mode GM, I'm not going to just be making stuff up just to make it challenging or to make it interesting. That's not my job. You know, my job is to be a referee. My job is to be a judge. And I think that maybe that is where I'm very different than a lot of people in the RPG space. I can wear my ref or judge hat, or I can wear my director hat. But I don't wear them both at the same time, and I don't switch between them. I put one hat on, and that's what I wear for that game. And by that game, I mean like that entire campaign. I don't switch between them. And so for me, you know, for me, I think, but I think a lot of GMs are not like that. And maybe some of the GMs aren't even aware that they're like that. I think there might be some like cognitive dissonance and they're not really aware. They think that they're one type of GM, but they're actually constantly switching and swapping between the two of them. So I have a very hard time when I'm playing a game of in fact, I don't context switch in that way. So Daggerheart kind of sort of lets me feel like, okay, I get to be the directorial type GM, which is fun. You know, I want to do that in a fantasy game. But I still get, you know, the players still get cool powers and, you know, cool abilities. And, you know, it feels a little bit more like, it feels like D&D kind of, but we're actually playing a PBTA game, right? And you might say, isn't that Dungeon World? Yes. But Dungeon World doesn't have like, you know, the cool stuff. And I do love meta currency. That is absolutely true, Mark. There's not a lot of, it's true, you know, compared to what we're used to in most fantasy games, right? There's not a lot of choice. You know, what is it? Like you get 2 domains per class, and beyond level 1, there's 2 cards? 2 cards per domain. So you get 4 powers to pick from when you level up. If you're like, you know, I don't know, a druid or something, you know? So yeah, I get it. But it, you know, it's a small, it's weird. It doesn't feel like it, but it's a small press indie game. It's weird because the art is so over the top and has this insane budget, but it was only made by like, you know, 2 or 3 people. So like, it doesn't have this infrastructure that you think it might have. It's a very strange game, you know? I mean, Monster Heart is my favorite PBTA game of all time. So you're not going to hear. I think Monster of the Week is actually kind of weak. I actually do think it's kind of weak. I was really excited when they did the 2nd edition, and I thought they were going to like really substantially change it, and they didn't, and I was disappointed. On the other hand, Monster Heart 2, I think, is weaker than Monster Heart 1. They are nearly synonymous and they're nearly the same. Um, but I think Monster Heart 1 is more feral of a game than Monster Heart 2. And I enjoy it just a little bit more. Now, Daggerheart is absolutely generic ass fantasy. There's no doubt about that. Now, the campaign frames can do a lot of heavy lifting, and that might be able to give you something interesting about it. There's the one campaign frame where you're kind of like, living on the Tron grid, right? Like you're in the digital universe, man. The digital information superhighway, man. But at the end of the day, it is pretty generic fantasy. So especially with some of the games you've been talking about, Lope. I mean, I don't blame you there for wanting to do that. Yeah. So that's a good point too, Adam. Like if you have people who want a little bit of A, some people want A, some people want B. You're like, okay, well, here's a game that's something in the middle. Mm. So, have you Dagger hyped again? Yeah. Well, again, it'll be interesting because I'll actually get a chance to sort of run through it. Also, full transparency. I admit this completely, which is that I don't intend to run Daggerheart the way Daggerheart says it should be run. In fact, I think some of that advice is harmful. I think not harmful, overselling it. I think some of that advice is bad. I'm gonna run Daggerheart much more like Stonetop. I think Stonetop advice is awesome. I think the Daggerheart flow, advice, and structures are well, it's muted. Sorry, that was very undramatic. There we go. I've talked about this before at length, but I think the spotlight rules in Daggerheart are terrible, and I think that they have gotten people obsessed with all the wrong things, and just I think not. I mean, I don't think they're that good anyways, so I would change them anyways. But even inside of that or outside of that, I think that they have had the absolute worst effect on GMs and their perception of the game. If the rules of Daggerheart are predominantly aimed at a traditional 5e codified audience who might be coming to this game, I think they're just a disaster. Period. I womped my own womp. That's true. Yeah, Land of Eam is a great system, and I thought it was really fun, quick, easy, simple. There's a lot to like about Land of Eam. I think it's a wonderfully designed system. I think it's great. I think the system is quick and easy. There's a little bit of weirdness in Land of Eam, right? Like where the whole when they got their signs reversed. They talk about subtracting a number, but the number is negative, so you should be adding it, but really you're subtracting it. But it's supposed to be a subtraction, so it should just be a subtraction. But they talk about subtracting a negative anyway. What Daggerheart advice don't I like? Pretty much all the stuff about Spotlight. Again, and it's also partially just the audience themselves. Again, I have a very conflicted, complicated relationship with Daggerheart right now, so. Peace out, that guy. I'm actually going to head out myself. It's like 4 a.m. here. I have not heard of EcoPunk TTRPG. That one I do not know. I like the art. I mean, I think the art's fun. I mean, I think it's clever and it's a style. It's not my favorite style, but I think it's great. I think the art is right on the point. For starters, I think the cover art is incredible, right? I think that's the piece by Gerard. But the interior art by the actual comic book writers, I think is delightful. It's fun. It's funny. It's whimsical. I think it's great. And I think the core game engine is delightful and fun and simple. And It's got that hex crawl element. It comes with a board. I mean, it's a great product. It's a beautiful product. I really like it. The Mucklands is cool, and there's a lot of expansion to it that you could do, and the classes are kind of interesting. But yeah, and again, people will bounce off of art. Art's important. We do judge books by cover. We do judge RPGs by the art. I don't think that there's anything in Land of Eam that is especially Muppet-esque. I mean, some of the language that they use, right? Like the damage is called like, it's not like called like naughty points. I don't. It's like you don't do damage, right? You do like demerits. I don't remember what the name of it is, but like you don't do damage, right? You just call like you cause stress or something like that with your attacks. I can't remember exactly the term. So there is a sort of a language there that's a little bit softer, Dread. Thank you. I knew it was something weird. Right. Right. So like Mateo, so like this is a great example of the kind of this is not a Daggerheart problem, right? This is just a PBTA problem. So what you're reading right there, what you're saying right there, well, for starters, it's true, but it's also kind of not true. And the reason why I say it's kind of not true is, well, okay, but imagine in 5e if the monsters never got to go. Okay, so like yes, if like you were playing, the equivalent would be like, imagine playing 5e and the monsters got a turn, and every time you missed, the monsters also got a bonus turn and they got to attack you. Then that would be a fair, brutal comparison. But that's not what happens in PBTA. But let's assume for a moment, though, that you are right. And people do get that feeling. And you're absolutely correct. And here's the reason. Here's the reason why that's a problem. So what Mateo says, missing in Daggerheart feels even more punishing than 5e with only one attack, and then the spotlight goes back to the GM. And the problem with that is, one, thinking about spotlight. The term spotlight, the way people associate with the spotlight, the way they think about the spotlight is terrible. Number two, this idea that does feel terrible if you're trying to win the game, right? If you're trying to play the campaign or the RPG as a sport or as a competition, but that's not what Daggerheart's about. And a lot of people who play 5e, who think that they are playing 5e as sort of a storytelling game, they actually don't realize it, but they're not. They are playing it as a competitive sport. They are there to win. They don't want to lose. And so if you bring that mentality with you into a Daggerheart game, you are going to be very disappointed, because it's the DNA of the game is not even remotely close to being able to, in my opinion, deliver on that promise or that premise. And that, by the way, goes both ways. So I gave this example, and then I'm going to sign off. But I gave this example in my Discord the other day. Okay, here we go. So one of my patrons, it was Hodop, who was like saying like, I just don't get, Daggerheart or whatever like that. And I said, they're like, Derek, you need to play the fucking game. So I, know how to play. Okay, fair enough. And I said, I like Daggerheart. I like Daggerheart, but if you haven't played a lot of PBTA games and you haven't really struggled with the way that combat can get out of control, Daggerheart can maybe seem a little unsatisfying. And he said, I just don't think I understand it. And I was like, well, there's a lot that you can do with a Daggerheart game that might not be very good at creating a great, fair and balanced sport/challenge, but could be really great at creating amazing moments and cool story beats. So I gave this example. GM, right? The GM says, the nearby group of orcs breaks away from the entangling roots and begins crossing the battlefield, heading towards the bridge. Wizard, what do you do? So already I've short-circuited, by the way, the Daggerheart rules, because I'm the one controlling the spotlight. But anyways, I said, so, the orcs break free of the entangling roots and begin crossing the battlefield towards the bridge. Wizard, what do you do? And the wizard goes, Okay, I begin swirling my hands, trailing behind them swirling arcs of fire, ribbons of fire, and I begin concentrating them into a single point. All right, boys, fireball time. GM says, all right, roll it. Wizard rolls a failure with hope. So the player gets to mark a hope, and the GM gets to make a move. So what's the GM going to do? Activate a monster and attack? No, this is me giving the example, by the way. The GM makes their move. Okay, Wizard. The fireball begins to concentrate and grow between your hands, building to a fever pitch. But you begin to lose control of the magic. The weaves are too unstable. You can release it now, uncontrollably, or you can try to stabilize the magic at great risk to yourself. What do you do? The wizard goes, I'm going to stabilize it. I'm going to concentrate. I'm going to try to recontain the unstable magic. And the GM says, okay, got it. Cleric. By the way, isn't the wizard? Whose turn is it? I don't know. GM, controlling spotlight. GM, cleric. You're about to reach the fighter who's holding off the other side. When you begin to see the wizard falter, you can see the leaking ether flowing out from his failed weave. Do you continue to the fighter's side, or do you try to help the wizard? Fighter goes, go, go, go. I've got this. Cleric goes, are you sure? Fighter says, yeah, I can hold them for a little bit more. I can go full guardian and pop my daily if I need to. Cleric says, all right. I nod at the fighter and I begin moving across the field, heading towards the wizard. I begin stretching out my hand and I begin feeding him stabilizing etheric flows. The GM says, totally. A white light begins to build as the cleric approaches the wizard, as the two of you begin trading energy back and forth, trying to contain the massively dangerous weave of pure elemental fire. And, and then I said, and so on and so forth. So at no point anywhere in that entire exchange was there ever really a clear delineation of the players, like, whose turn was it? I don't know. I was just moving back and forth, cutting between interesting moments. The wizard failed, and I turned that into a move where he's trying to control his wizard. So for me, when I get to make a move in a game like Daggerheart, go watch the Root campaign. That's a PBTA game. I mean, that's all I do. It's like the entire game. It's all I do. So go watch the Root actual play. It's a PBTA, and the whole game is that. Because when a player fails or rolls with fear, I, Derek, get to make a move. And that doesn't mean I need to challenge the players, because I'm not, my job here, like if I was playing challenge mode Derek, right? Oh, sure. Well, we'll try. Well, I mean, I'm going to be running. I mean, you're saying I don't. I mean, to be clear, I don't know. I don't know why that wouldn't work in a PBTA game or in a Daggerheart game. I mean, it's got the same DNA and architecture. In fact, I actually, I see. Daggerheart players are too trad. Well, that's an interesting way of saying it. Are you really saying 5e players are too trad? I mean, I don't know what you mean by Daggerheart players. I mean, the game's only out for a year, so I don't know if you mean. Do you mean your players, or like Because I'm just trying to understand what you mean by Daggerheart players are too trad. I mean, to be clear, Forivor, I do think you are correct, and one of the struggles that I have is that my opinion, a lot of the people playing Daggerheart are playing the game wrong. It's really what it comes down to. I said something once on a live stream where I said, almost every move I make in a PBTA game is some sort of soft move that ultimately puts the agency back into the player's hands. And I don't really see a world in which that's really different in a Daggerheart game. Because, well, that's what I was trying to say. If I was playing, so again, it depends on what hat I'm wearing, okay? Right? It depends on what hat I'm wearing. When I'm wearing my judge referee hat, and my job is to challenge the players and see if they can make it through my dungeon, if they earned that treasure and they earn that experience points. When it's my turn, I'm thinking, how can I use my monsters? How can I use my traps to inflict maximum casualties and maximum death, right? My job here is to challenge the players. And to, to play the character, to play the game to the hilt. When I'm playing a game like Daggerheart or PBTA, where hell, even if I did manage somehow to wipe the party, if I was really trying to be an asshole GM and win, they could all just surrender and not TPK. So I can't kill them even if I wanted to, anyways. So really, there's no point. But my job, when the player, right, the players are getting to be they're the cool people, right? The players are getting to do the cool stuff with their players. When the player rolls a failure, or when the player rolls with fear, the game is basically saying, Derek, what do you want to see? What do you want to have happen? Well, if I was trying to play a challenge mode game where my goal was to try to beat the players to death, I might just activate my highest level monster every single time and attack them with the most powerful attack I have. And if I was wearing my judge, referee, dungeon crawl, challenge mode, get good or get dead mode GM hat, I probably would do that. And then I'd be really disappointed because the game would suck. But that's not the hat I'm wearing. The hat I'm wearing when I'm playing that game is I go, what would look cool in a TV show? What would look cool in a movie? What would look cool in a novel? Or a graphic novel. And I think about how many times you watch a movie or a TV show and like there's these intense vignettes in the middle of an otherwise chaotic and hectic battle where we really highly focus on, all of these things. So, but, yeah. Oh, now to be clear, I think Risk It All is I think that's one of the bad moves. I think that's one of the bad rules in Daggerheart. I do think Risk It All is a bad move. I'm not ignoring the ranges, and I'm definitely not ignoring the monster activation rules. The only thing I am ignoring is, and I'm not actually technically ignoring the spotlight. I'm just not allowing the players to dither and wither about the spotlight. But you aren't wrong. I think that the advice that you have that they give about and the I guess the rules for spotlight management, I think are a little bit sus. I also think it's really interesting that the first rule of Daggerheart is that the GM can make a move whenever they want. That's like the first rule. And then but people get so, like, that comes before everything else. But then people get so caught up and weirdly obsessed with, like, the spotlight and spotlight management. When I was just like, but what about the first rule? And it's because they are correct in assuming, wait, so if the GM could just take a move whenever they want, the GM could take 18 moves in a turn and just kill all the players. And yes, the GM could. And that would be a really dick move if you were playing a challenge-based fair combat as sport game. But it's not that. I think that's just where people lose. I don't think that's what people get. I think that's where people have missed the message. I don't know. It's weird because they're playing their 5e games and they're playing them in theory in this sort of challenged move. You were correct for, again, it is not well described at all. So I am actually completely on board with you there. Because you're correct. It is mentioned once, and then they spend pages talking about Spotlight. You are not wrong at all. So I get number one, I get why people are confused. I get why people are struggling. And it's unfortunate. It's a little bit sad. And I think Smendon is also correct, quite correct, actually, which is that they equate Spotlight, because of course they do. They equate Spotlight with Initiative, and they're not the same. They're not the same. So, okay, but, Dungeon World has moves. Dungeon World has hit points. Dungeon World has armor. I don't think anyone has ever made a mistake of thinking that Dungeon World was combat as sport. Dungeon World literally has hit points. Dungeon World literally has armor. It's a damage reduction system. You have hit points, and you don't get domain cards, but you get moves, you get spells that you have to level up and take new ones and get new ones. So I mean, and I don't think anyone has ever fucked up and play, fought Dungeon World even for a second was a combat sport game. So I think that is less to do with the game, and I think it has more to do with the audience. Now again, I get why people are making the mistakes that they're making, and this is what I talked to Spencer Stark. I talked to Spencer Stark at Gamma for a good chunk of time, and I told him, I said, I struggle as a content creator because I don't know how to reach these people without being an asshole. And I don't want to be an asshole. I want to help them, but I don't know how to help them. And I want to help them, but I don't know how to help them. And I don't know how to reach them. And I feel like I'm saying the wrong things, and I'm not doing a good job selling what it is I'm trying to convince. And and I'm like, I do this for a living, I guess, in theory, but I haven't cracked that code. That Da Vinci Code is uncracked. And I said, and it makes me kind of and so because I was talking to him about like Daggerheart and why we hadn't covered it as much, and I said, because I didn't know what to say. The people that got it when I talked about it, and then I felt like I was just going to be I didn't know how to say it in a new way that would help anybody. And I didn't want to just be, old man shouting at clouds. I do that enough, because I do care about the hobby. I think you all know that I love this stuff. I mean, again, I was never trying to do this for money. I happened to make a living. Well, I happen to get by. I'll say that now. But yeah. Anyways, yes. Show don't tell is important. But here, you know what? Honestly, I actually had this conversation with Spencer Stark as well. I said the problem is I would run Daggerheart, and you the people, the audience would not be wrong about this, because I talked to Spencer about this, and I also talked to Darcy Ross about this. She's the head marketing manager for Daring to Press. I said the problem, because I was actually trying to talk to them. This was back in March, by the way. I was trying to talk to them to get them excited to sponsor the Knights of Last Call to do a Daggerheart AP. Because one of the big problems about doing an actual play is it's a tremendous amount of work, and way more than just turning my camera on and going live, right? And I got to organize schedules. I got to get guys over here. I got to split the costs. And the shows usually make less money than my normal show. So like my normal show might make $200, but an actual play might make $100, and then divide that by 4 or 5 people. Everybody's getting $20. Now, don't get me wrong. Hey, I'm going to come over and play Daggerheart with Derek for $20. That's pretty sweet. I think a lot of people wouldn't complain about that at all. But it's also not enough for you to tell your wife that you can't go to your kids' football game or ballet recital. And then from my perspective, if I'm only streaming 2 or 3 times a week, and suddenly one of my, I'm only normally making maybe $500 a week, maybe $400 a week, and suddenly I'm making, $100, $200 less, it's pretty tough. Anyways, but the thing I said is I would run Daggerheart, and I would do things in the game on the actual play that were most definitely not what the book was telling you should do. And I think people would be rightfully go, that's not what the game says to do. That's not how the game works. And of course, I mean, because, I'm a product of, I've been reading, PBTA games since Apocalypse World, Dungeon World, and Monster Hearts came out, back on Google+. So for me, this is just part of my DNA at this point. I mean, I don't even really know how to think anything differently. And, a lot of the things that I was talking and would be doing, I think a lot of people would say, that you're not allowed to do that. That's illegal. That's not in the rules. And they wouldn't be wrong. Here's the thing, 4-4. That's cool. That's great. I'm sure people were like that. But if the premise is, I mean, and maybe, well, that's okay. Fair enough. If the premise is like to show, look, I know how the internet is. I'm aware of how the internet is. I could sit there and show you how I would play Daggerheart, and I think it would work very well. But people might still be upset because I'm not doing it the way you're supposed to do it. Is all I'm saying. Um, because they might say things like, like a great like, and part of it is because of my internalization of just so many of the core concepts. Like, in fact, Daggerheart GMing kind of intimidates me a little bit, if I'm being honest with you, because of the power I have as a GM in a PBTA scenario with fear. You see, as a PBTA GM, I'm used to having to abide by the rules. And that means I don't get to make a hard move unless you give me a golden opportunity or if you roll a 6-. So even if there is a moment in the story or there's a moment in the fiction where I think it would be so awesome if this really horrible hard move thing happened, I respect the rule of Monster Heart, Avatar, Root, Dungeon World, Apocalypse World, Monster of the Week, the Sword, the Crown, the Ultimate Power, whatever it is, that I am not going to just make the hard move. I'll tee it up. I'll tee it up with a soft move. I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to make, when the players look to me to see what happens, I can make a soft move. I'm allowed to make a soft move. And if the players don't act on that soft move, then I can follow through, right, with a golden opportunity. But assuming the players do follow through, because I ask them I tell them the scenario, and then I ask them what they do. Most of the time, players don't go, I completely ignore that threat, right? They deal with it. That's what the whole point is. Anyways, but if the players don't roll a 6-, if the players get on a nice roll of rolling 7, 8s, and 9s, and especially 10s pluses, I can potentially be locked out of the game a little bit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it means I don't have as much control, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's something I've gotten used to. But suddenly you're playing Daggerheart and I have this resource of fear that I can bank. And that means I can, whenever I want to, basically make a hard move. That is the kind of directorial control power in some ways that I have only ever dreamed of. When I'm running a Daggerheart or like a Dungeon World game, like I'm thinking like, oh man, it would be so cool if like the wall just suddenly got burst in and the giants came rushing in. Wow, that'd be so cool. But I'm like, but nobody rolled a 6-, and there's not really a way for me to call that a golden opportunity, so I'm not going to do it. And I still have to respect my agenda and my principles. But like in Daggerheart, if I was sitting on a bank of fear and I thought that was a cool thing to do, and it felt like what I wanted to do, and I had the fear to do it, I could do it and be, ethically and morally justified to do it. So that's a lot of firepower, Right, but and I could do that, Mateo. But then people would say, "But isn't the whole point of this to show us how to play the game?" And you're telling us that you're playing the game wrong. I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it, but I did have this conversation with Spencer Stark, and he seemed to understand it. Take care, Matt. Enjoy. Safe flight. Oh, Forvor. It must be terrifying, horrible. I can't even imagine. Uh, Garblag says, I'd love to hear what you think of our Daggerheart actual play and how I ran it, but I know you ain't got time for that nonsense. Garblag, I know you've got some games on your channel, and I would love to check them out, but my time is very, very, very hard pressed. You are not correct, or you are correct, I should say, but it would be kind of cool. And actual plays are rough for me to watch personally. So when people don't watch ours, I go, I get it. Spending a fear to make hard move does make you feel like some sort of evil god. Yeah, I do feel like an evil god. Ironically, I'd love to spend fear for only super hard moves and get it less often so it feels like a truly terrifying pressure relief valve. Well, that's the key. Okay. So dialing it back a little bit. I don't know what the actual language is of Daggerheart, but I'll tell you what the language should be, which is when a GM spends fear, they can make as hard of a move as they want. The thing that I always remember about a 6- is, the rules, the very specific rules of Apocalypse World, of Dungeon World, of Monster Hearts, where you may make as hard of a move as you want. You don't have to make the hardest move possible. You can, and that's your permission to go hard in the paint if you want to go hard in the paint, but you don't have to. And it's about pacing, and it's about tension, it's about feel. It's not about challenge quotients, it's not about CRs, it's not about battle points, it's not about any of that shit. Alan, I appreciate that you say that, and I lovingly, I hear it, I hear it and I appreciate it and I thank you for your words. But I also understand how shitty the YouTube audience could be. But also too, Alan, partially the reason I would do something like that is to try to reach people. And if people just immediately shut me off or turn me off because they're like, oh, he's not doing it right, I kind of have missed the guiding pillars of Knights of the Last Call, which are written into our YouTube whatever description, or it's even on my business card. It says education and entertainment, right? So I want to do both, and I so it's fun to be entertained, but I do want to show and teach people what's up. So anyways, but I don't, but there's some things that Daggerheart's, I'm not a big fan. I'm right there with, I'm not a big fan of, the way that they seem to be kind of giving the Foundry people the shaft and not really working. And they've got this kind of really restrictive license. And I get it. Like, they want to protect their game, and that's fine. But it also kind of feels like, are they doing it just so that they can get exclusive deals with, shitty fucking ass Nexus, which I hate. But so there's some stuff, there's some things that they have done with their game and their development of it that I don't love. But fundamentally, though, I can tell you that, like, the people running the company are awesome. I've met them many times, and sure, they might be fake as fuck, but I for the most part, I'm pretty good at sussing stuff like that out. I've met a lot of fake people, and they are not the fake people. Trust me. And they're gamers through and through, and they actually truly believe in this. But and they are right, which is that the beauty of PBTA has, for the most part, been sort of lost on the vast majority of people because it's been too impenetrable. Again, much love to Jeremy Strandberg, but no one is just going to pick up Stone Top. Okay? And by no one, I mean, like, no one who doesn't already love, PBTA or PBTA-esque type things or sort of been introduced. No one's going to be like, yeah, I've been running 5e since, like, early 2014. My group kind of got a little bit, shooken up by the OGL 2024 agenda. But, ultimately, we stuck with our 2014 campaign. And we just ran Curse of Strahd for the 5th time. And you know what? Here's 1,200 pages of Iron Age low fantasy PBTA game. We're going to pick that up. Like, no one's going to do that, So I appreciate that, Daggerheart has sort of, stuck their hand into the lion's mouth, of trying to reach those people and say, hey, the type of game that you love watching on, Critical Role or Dimension 20, the games that they're the type of games that people are always talking about playing, but they're full of shit and they're just cheating all the time and fudging behind the screens. What if you could play that game, but for real? So they're trying to reach them, and I appreciate that. Anyways, what a great line. They could be a great people, Kal-El, if they wish to be. They only lack the light to show them the way. And the father becomes the son, and the son becomes the father. Anyways, Shout out Superman Returns, my favorite Superman. I mean, I know that's technically from the first one, but they repeat it in Superman Returns, which is my favorite Superman. Alrighty, folks. This was fun. I'm glad we got to hang out. Got to hang out with my EU crew. Love you guys. I'm looking forward to doing some session 0 for the One Ring Sunday morning. We're gonna be recording it, making it available for everybody. It's gonna be awesome. It might be live. It'll definitely be recorded. So yeah, I think it'll be awesome. I'm excited to see what people roll and see what people come up with and deliver. I know Gandalf is going to be their patron. That is a decision that they can make beforehand. But I've sort of encouraged them. You can have ideas, but I've sort of encouraged them to not just come with a pre-built character. And of course, we're going to be doing some backstory cards to sort of do a sort of session 0 collaborative, not so much world building because it is the Middle Earth and it's kind of well established, but there's going to be plenty of opportunities for characters to sort of. And the other thing too about about those games is like it's such a big world and so much of it is undefined. I'm fine with people making stuff up. I'm not like such a purist that I'm like, no, you can't change anything. So it'll be really cool. See what they make, and I'm excited to it. I don't know. Hopefully, people are very well familiar with the game, so I'm also probably expecting to do a little bit of a teach as well. So I don't think it's going to take like 4 hours or something, 5 hours. But I imagine we'll probably go for a good solid 3 hours, and that'll be the goal. So it might be live. It'll definitely be recorded. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, I'll see you next time, where we'll probably be covering more Stonetop here on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody, or good morning. Peace.